Welcome to what we hope is a bonus episode, because I'd love to have two conversations with Katie. That's right, two Katies today. Katie Redford, to be exact. But today's bonus episode, we are exploring the 4-6 manifesting generator. That is Katie Redford. And I am your 5-1 sacral generator. That's Katie Eads. So welcome, Katie.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here, finally meeting you.
I know. So as the fates would have it, it took us several times to lock this in, but I'm really, really easy breezy. So that worked out great for me. And I love hearing you talk about being a quad right and your quad right experience, as we were just chatting off camera. As a 4-6, I was telling Katie, you never give a 4-6 homework. It's just not how they learn. And sometimes I'll have a 4-6 say, well, I can do homework. I'm like, yeah, but like you learn from people. Do you want to do the homework? Do you want to read the book? No, you want to go to Greece. You want to have experiences. And of the 12 profiles, you're the only profile that is the upper house, the 4 and the 6.
So experiential.
Yeah.
Yeah. I began my experiment. It's the quad right thing. I really have to think about it sometimes. I began my experiment, I think 3 years ago. Like the time is just flying. So it's really an interesting space to be in. But I really dove in wanting to learn more about conditioning. And that's how human design came to me, was like in this conditioning space. And I'm going to sideline a little bit in that I live in Costa Rica and I've been in a deep dive in plant medicine for about 7 years now. And so a really big part of the work that I do personally and with others in the medicine space is about releasing conditioning, or at least, having awareness around it. So when human design came to me, and kind of like a calling from the medicine, which is crazy. Human
Say more about that.
Well, human design, I think, is medicine, like plant medicine, and plant medicine comes as a calling for most people. And so it's like something just shows up in your, in your awareness. It's like, oh, wow, what's that? Like, I feel super called to that. And human design was the same thing for me. It was a real calling. I felt a real calling to it. And the big piece for me was around conditioning, because I've been doing so much work on myself through the plant medicine space. And then human design shows up and I go, ooh, there's a juicy little rabbit hole to go down. And so I went down, like I just dove in. I went straight into a 12-month mentorship where we were working anywhere from 4 to 24 hours a week in kind of a small group. I think at max there was like maybe 24 people at a time in shorter pieces, like in shorter installments of the program. But so yeah, I just dove right in, knowing that there could be this mergence. Like I had this deep knowing without putting words to it at the time, without cognizing it. I could feel it in my body that there was this connection that could be made between human design and plant medicine. And then that went even deeper when I discovered the gene keys. And I was like, shadow worked the nth degree. Like, it's just been so good. It's just been so good having all of these pieces together. And so I do a little bit of work on the side where I take small groups through some gene keys and then sit with them in plant medicine. It's like so incredible. And so anyways, so on the I digress a little bit. the quad right piece being quad right, and I'm also the right angle cross of the sleeping phoenix. So there's also this deep knowing in me about what's coming, what's been happening, what's going to happen. And energetically, I know my role, but I can't cognize it. I can't put it into words. There is a support space that I hold in this transition 2027, what's already happened and what's coming, you know? So anyway, the quad right piece, going back to that, when I look back on my growing up years and being in school, and it was so challenging for me, the labeling and the diagnoses, which I never really got. I'm 53. It wasn't a big, ADHD was not a huge thing back then. It was there, it was sort of surface, but it was like more hush hush, right? But I don't believe that's what it is. I don't believe that's what it ever was. Now that I'm
No,
embracing
you
my
just
design.
don't learn that way. And it drives
Well,
me
I
nuts.
don't.
I know,
Um,
and you definitely don't.
Give me experiential. Don't put me in front of an.
Yeah.
Is this a child friendly space because f bombs drop out
Oh no, you
often?
can. I host a Friday podcast.
Okay.
I'll shut the fuck up and listen. It's fine.
Okay, good, because I've been like holding them back because they just like I don't I like the word fuck. It's really, sometimes it can be really expressive and it really like drives a point sometimes. Anyways, it was a really challenging space. Yeah. And I have a son who's 4, 6 as well. He's 22 and he's suffered a lot of similar challenges that I did, going to school. Um, Anyways, he's a happy, healthy little adult now and, making his way in the world. But I keep jumping off of the quad
Can
right
I ask
thing.
which channel, if you know, does your defined head connect to the Aja? If you have a
Oh, the
defined head.
6447, 6447.
Uh, okay. I have the middle channel, the 62-4. So defined heads. My favorite part about being around someone with a defined head is I automatically understand everything you're saying. Even if we're in a different channel in the head, I automatically understand everything you're saying, and we think different than 70% of humans. So you could, on my opening of my podcast, I always say there's space for you here. I also have the gate 15. So I completely get what you're saying. And
Thank you.
I do want to go back to a few things because you've dropped so many
Yeah.
nuggets. So my job now, because this is what defined heads do, we drop
Yeah.
nuggets and then an open head guides us. So I'm going to be the open head today.
Beautiful.
Plant medicine. When we hear plant medicine in America, people think essential oils. Tell me
Mhm.
more about plant medicine for you and how, because human design, interact, gene keys, like I need to know now what your vocation, your core wound is. I'm dying to know. Uh, tell us all the things. Tell me that, and then tell me about plant medicine.
Okay. So see, I have to go back. I've just been so out for a little while. Um, Plant medicine. So when I'm talking about plant medicine, what I'm talking about is psychedelic medicine. And so ayahuasca, iboga, San Pedro, or also called wachuma, um, DMT variations, 5-MeO, which is bufo, comes from a Sonoran chode. Working with cannabis intentionally as a medicine. It's so beautiful. It takes us into our pain body, mental, physical, emotional. It's so incredible. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking
Yeah.
about going psychedelic journeys and working with the gene keys or human design. It's
Mm.
explosive for me. The first time I did it, I was going into a Colombian ayahuasca ceremony, and their medicine is called yahe. And I thought to myself, My life's work is 55. My evolution is 59, talking, Sun Earth personality. And so I thought to myself, why don't I take the shadow and ask the medicine? And it was a really, really brave and vulnerable space for me to go to. I had been working in the medicine for about 5 years before I did this. And so I went in with the intention of asking the medicine, um, how do I show up as a victim in my life? Like, really, where am I a victim? How do I show up in this fucking victimization mentality, you know? And to say I got enlightened and my ass kicked is an understatement. Yeah, that was a really brave space to go to. And then the following night, I took um, How Am I Dishonest with Myself to the medicine. Because I think there's places where we can see it, but then I think there's these other spaces where whether it's ego or we just simply can't see it because it's repressed due to trauma. Um, Anyways, I just felt really big, bold, and brave going to the medicine with these questions because they shine a light on these questions that we ask. They don't let us hide from ourselves.
So you're the reason today when I turned to look for Gene Key 56 to read about, and there were so many pages on the 55, and so I decided I was going to read about the 55. My purpose is 39, and so I'm always finding the 55.
Yeah.
Um,
And Richard encourages anyone who goes into Richard Rudd, the writer of the Gene Keys. He encourages anyone who is exploring the Gene Keys to read the 55 and the 22.
hmm.
Were important in the
I knew
whole
about the
process.
22. I didn't realize about the 55 until today.
Mm,
On Mondays, I do my research. And that wasn't the one I intended to research, but it was pulled there, and my hands always pick the right pages. It's
yeah.
like I will literally just, if I'm like, oh, I want to just look what Gene Key 39 is, I'll just open to that page without fail. And there were so many pages in it that I got pulled back in. My mom had the 3955 channel. So
Mm,
today was a very fun little, it's come full circle. And I think you'll enjoy the story of how I found human design. My dad is really into psychedelics, and so is the man that I live with and share life with. I am not.
mhm.
And the month I found human design, I also randomly said yes to taking a few mushrooms. And the about 4 weeks later, I guess the hospital would call it a psychosis. You all might call it a spiritual awakening. I don't think now, looking back, that those two things were not apart. There probably was quite a bit of
Yeah.
symbolism there, or synchronicity, I should say. I was also in the middle of coaching school, which was fun. Um, and they didn't diagnose girls in the 80s with ADHD either, but I would probably be put in that box considering I was failing math and penmanship in first grade.
Hmm.
I was
Yeah.
failing math because I was putting 0 and 1 for all my answers. And when they asked me why, I said, well, I wanted to read my book. I have a first line. I like to read. And the reason I was failing spelling in 5th grade was because I said we had one computer in the whole school. And I was like, well, spell check will take care of that for me. Like, I have the 17 in my life work. So I'm looking to the future. I see patterns.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was a good girl.
Miss
So I got through
Katie,
school.
once the rain has just, I'm in Costa Rica right now, and the rain has just started. And if you feel like it's too much noise in the
Sure.
background, I'll move somewhere else. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.
Great.
We'll take a
Thanks.
break in between our bonus episode and our main episode, then that'll be probably good if it gets too loud. So you talk about the other synchronicity I'm just really enjoying here is the releasing conditioning.
Is
Um,
the one?
Releasing conditioning. Yeah, before I found human design, I created my business. It's an owl, wisdom, fifth line. And I have this tagline, rewrite your story. And I'm so passionate about people seeing the gene keys as an opportunity
Yeah.
to rewrite your story without the conditioning.
hmm hmm Um, when I found when plant medicine knocked on my door, because I'm not going to say that I found it. When the universe brought us together, um, I really was in a space of wanting to understand how the trauma in my life. I'm a big proponent of Gabor Mate, love him. Spent a few years in addiction, and so he fell into my lap in that world. But um, I just need a second. When I came together with plant medicine, partially it was because I really wanted to understand how the trauma in my life, repressed or conscious, um, had affected my behavior moving forward. But I also wanted to understand how the caregivers in my world affected how I moved forward in my life. Um, my mother, and I'm sorry, I don't remember her full profile. She's been deceased for 24 years. I've looked at her profile a couple of times. She's a projector, was a projector. And that was really enough for me to understand a lot of the things in my life. A lot of the behaviors that I had that didn't inherently feel like they were me. And my father, who I don't have a relationship with, I haven't looked at his human design, but he's played a really big part in my plant medicine journeys. Um, when I asked the medicine, there's a particular retreat center here that has, you know, a number of intentions that they set out for all of the guests to work with each week. And one of them is show me who I've become. When I asked the medicine that one night, I saw this tiny little photograph, like, you know, the size of those tiny little wallet ones we used to get in school when we had our photos done, was way off in the distance. And I see my father in his like 20s. And I was like, whoa. And I was able to see how both of them came together and wove a lot of the spaces that I lived. And so this conditioning piece, which I've come to learn happens, you know, even, you know, from the moment we're born, we're conditioned, right? You know that. I didn't know that at the time. I didn't really, this wasn't something that I could have cognized, you know. The witch in me was repressed, you know, a lot of things in me were repressed as a child. So it, you know, to come to human design and plant medicine at, well, essentially my third phase of life, like right around turning 50, it really was a beautiful opportunity for me to see how the conditioning had affected me because I've been through those first two phases of the six. Yeah. Now here I am in the third, and I'm open to it all. And plant medicine opened me to that. And human design just took it deeper. And, um, you know, I'm a work in progress, and we all are through this whole lifetime, I think. And I love the space of starting to feel like I can just be me in my own skin. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, it's my favorite reason I like to bring human design to people. It's giving them a look into who they really are
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
holding space for them to witness who they are.
And with or without the plant medicine, it's really beautiful. With plant medicine, I think it just like it fucking accelerates it, you know?
Mhm.
And I've talked to a number of people who are in and have been in the medicine, some for a really long time. One dear sister of mine, she's been in the medicine for about 15 years, and she's known about human design for a long time, but it was just last year in a medicine journey where she said, I actually saw my whole design come online in my body. Like I could see the whole thing. I could see like it was, and she said it was the most incredible thing to merge into it in the medicine in that whole holistic way. Yeah. The whole body space. Mhm.
It's so beautiful to hear your channel 64 47 just sharing. Now
The
I'm at,
experiential,
yeah,
that the
well, I
story.
know you're a defined throat, so I know it's connecting to your throat somewhere, and I'm just curious where your throat connection is because it's so beautiful to hear. You're such an abstract thinker, and emotions are so big and such a rich part of your experience. I have a lot of logical channels, and I'm a 5/1, so I'm very
Mhm,
practical.
mhm.
um, part of my evolution in human design was understanding this wide open solar plexus is I'm sitting in people's consciousness all the time because this
Yeah.
emotional center is that seat. And the only time I ever that I'm truly connected or plugged into someone is if that 39 gets lit up because I have no other options of being lit up there.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
we know that energetically we seek people, and we know that psychology will give us lots of reasons for that. But when you take that story and you flip it and share it from that same, language that people can understand, I'm a wordsmith. Like I love this
Mhm.
idea that, right, we can say abracadabra and someone can turn into a frog. We can also, bring to light something for someone, and all of a sudden that DNA vibrates a little higher. That water gets a little bit, lit up by that. 39 is leaving sparks wherever I go. And that 55 is really what's here to mutate and evolve. So it's really lovely to, um, it's a victim energy oftentimes when I step into it. And I've been stepping into it for so much of my life. So it's really fun to be around your energy and to experience it in just a very different way.
Thank you. Thank you. Um, the the 55 now for me, I'm not saying I don't slip into the shadow state. Fuck, it's a
Yeah, of
human.
course we do. That's
We
part of.
have to.
Mhm.
But what I really, really love about the 55 is that in its complexity and simplicity, freedom is the gift and the city.
Mhm.
And it's the only gene key that has the same word. The 22, I think, is grace and graciousness, but it's not grace, and they're so different. But freedom is freedom, but its experience is so different, you know?
Yeah.
The experience of freedom. And each one of our perceptions of freedom is so different. And there's a juiciness in exploring that for me, when I'm with other people. In the plant medicine space, I sit in the ceremonies, I support in the ceremonies, and I do integration work with guests as well. So it always comes up. The 55 without fail comes up in conversation. It's either victim and a client will call himself out for it, or it's I want freedom. This is a big, big word these days. It's a big energy, concept, desire, drive is for freedom. And so I just like it feels so good to be so deeply resonant with that gene key and be able to experience that with everybody. And I'm experiencing it with you too. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
I do executive corporate coaching, and I get to bring human design in. So people that think they're getting their just standard outside the box leadership are going to get a little bit more with me.
Do
And
you um, do you work with BG5 in corporate leadership or
mm-mm.
BG5 is the business arm of human
I
design.
have
So,
just recently learned about it, but I do not work with them. But what I find fascinating in the work that I have done is before I might get someone's chart, and I don't get everyone's chart, but before I do,
mhm.
I always know when someone carries the 55 because they'll say the words, I feel liberated. And that's my purpose in relationships. That is my city. And
Yeah,
um,
right.
yeah, and I always, ever without fail, when I get their human design, and it started with a very specific client who actually has the full channel. So that one took 6 months. The other ones, it's usually a few sessions, 30 minutes. So when
Yeah.
we talk about plant medicine, what I find so fascinating about the work you do is that there's certain profiles that are really going to be so, I think, so beneficial from that. The 1-3 is the reverse of you, where
Hmm.
you are in the experiential, not that they don't learn through experience, observation out in the wild, but because they're the 1-3 is the lower house. And so the lower house gets stuck. It's a very self-absorbed process by nature. That the 1-3 profile can fall into the narcissism when they're missing the whole picture. They can miss their own
Yeah.
essence and miss themselves because it's so
Yeah.
self-absorbed. I'm curious, do you see any patterns in the people you support in charts? I don't know how many charts you've seen, but after I've seen over 200, like the patterns become real. As Ra says, the not self is
You
how we're
know,
like.
yeah, that's interesting that you would say that. In the work that I do, I really have to be energetically careful with my boundaries. And so I can't actually, off the top of my head,
Mm.
recollect a chart. So
Mm.
when I like I do high level readings with
Mm-hmm.
guests at one of the facilities that I work at. And so really it's about giving them, a foundation for understanding what human design is. I take them through their type and their profile, their strategy and authority. We talk about how to work with the authority, what does it sound like? What does it feel like? What are the cues? And we do a little bit on diet and environment, but really that's all I get them for.
Mm.
Um, when they come though, because I do those via Zoom before they come to our facility, the one facility, when they come, there's always a space where something has landed and they've really, like dropped into a certain part of human design, whether it's the manifesting generator or the projector, or if it's the diet and environment. Katie, I've been experimenting. You told me about the diet thing, and I've been experimenting, and wow, what a difference that makes. So it does always land a little bit, but we don't go super deep in. Where I find the deeper work comes is doing, there's another facility that I do some work at. And so in a week-long retreat, I usually get 3 sessions in front of the guests. And that's where we will work on a gene key.
Mm.
And we started working doing the sorry, the core wound, but I felt it was a little too deep for first timers to go right there. And so I have switched it up and now we're back up at life's work. It's there's still a shadow in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not quite as deep. It's getting in that core wound. People are aware, the medicine shows them what they need to see, but I don't need to push that space for them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when they're first time in the medicine.
Mm.
People want to go there, I'll take them there. But it was really interesting actually. I just had a flashback visual memory one night in the medicine in a center, and I think there were, I don't know, around 30 guests there. And before we started that night, our shaman was late. It happens sometimes, but we had like this 3 hour window to fill. So most people had their phones. And so I took them all to the Gene Keys website and they listened to the audio for their life's work. And then we went into the medicine. And I'm deep, deep, deep in the medicine. And I get up and I, navigate my way to the bathroom. And I come walking back in and I look around the room and everyone has a little bubble above their head. And it's their Gene Keys that they had, and it was a different number for each one of them. And I was like, fuck yeah, I love this. I just love this. I love how connected it can bring all of us together, what the connection that it brings to all of us together in that kind of a space. And I could also see how resonant the information download was happening for them in different ways. Not everybody the next day said, oh, well, yeah, it was bang on with, what I had listened to. But there's always little subtleties in there. And I think that's where we can really start to open doors. Some of us need a subtle approach. Some of us need the door kicked down,
Yeah, I could see where the personality, the life's work would be where you'd want to start, because it truly is how we identify with us, ourselves, our usness, our uniqueness in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is your core wound? I'm dying to know now.
13.4. You're gonna have
Yep. I'm my third. Mine's a 13.5.
Is yours seriously?
Yeah.
Discord, discernment, empathy?
Yeah, it's the gift of hearing.
No way.
The gift of hearing another's heart. I'm here to guide that process. Yeah. I just don't do it with psychedelics.
Hello.
My words are psychedelic enough. I have this. I know are you familiar with the 7 sacred seals?
Yes.
So the 17.
I haven't been working it.
Okay. So my life's work is the 17.5. And the 17 is the second. It's healing the wound of denial. That's what I'm here to do. And that's why my purpose is liberation. So I can liberate people from their denial. And my attraction
this
line
is the third time that.
Go ahead.
Sorry, it just landed that this is like the third time in the last couple of weeks that the 7 sacred seals has come in front of me. So
well, now you're done. 3 times. That's what you need. That's in the 55.
Right? I'm in. I guess I'm going in.
I bought the book and it didn't. What I'm realizing, both of these works were really purported by men, so we probably need a feminine to talk about it. I really like to marry these two. You've got the yin of the Gene Keys, you've got the yang of the human design, and the 7 sacred seals is so yin. It's going to take a while for my practical brain to wrap around it. But when it does, I'd love to, I really look at, bringing something together with those two. That's my pattern interruption. I see it. And that's part of why I'm drawn so much to the core wounds, because I'm here to heal one of them. And so you talk about, like, there's the 12-step program. So I have the 3-step program: allow, accept, embrace.
Yeah. I love it.
And part of that gift, hearing people's hearts, I'm hearing, denial is that we're not allowing something to happen. And so for me, liberation is getting people to allow, because acceptance will happen for them when they are ready. And when we start laughing together, we really start to embrace it. And
then it's like, well, how do we do that? Honest, open, willingness.
Creating that space. And that's what the 13th gift does. We're story collectors. We're here to listen. And, you combine that with our life's work and our purpose, and you get this incredible gift. But the 13th The 13th gene key is where you start your breakthrough into the 7 sacred seals. And you have to do that through healing the 13th.
How beautiful is that?
My SQ is the 61, so that shadow of psychosis. That's why I call it a spiritual awakening, is because that's what happened for me. And the universe aligned perfectly. I mean, I had somebody call, it was the same name, my ex-husband, and he yelled at me, and it was like a whole thing, and it brought me right back in to a previous life that I'd left. You know, I have a third line in my attractor, so I fucked around and found out a few times.
That's interesting because I think I do too.
Hmm.
I do. I just slipped over. I do.
Yeah, I have the 31-3 there. So when I'm being a little arrogant, I can attract a lot of things.
Wow, so interesting. I'm
Yeah.
learning a lot here right now. Thank you. Mine's the 43-3. Definite site epiphany. Makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Anyway,
This is what I mean
thanks.
by my words. You don't need the plant medicine. You come. I have these words, the way with them.
Mhm.
And what I'd love to we're going to shut down our bonus episode and push people over to our main episode. I'd love to grab the last 15, 20 minutes with you of chatting about, you know, life before human design, and maybe offering some compare contrast here, a little bit of that, sharing a little bit of that story that you've been collecting. Because when you have the 13 in your location, that means that people have told you things that you didn't need to know as a child. People have told you things you didn't necessarily need to know as an adult. And I imagine that will make for a lovely conversation. So if you're still listening, make sure you head over and tune in to our main episode.